It's going to be on the screen, so if you don't have your Bible, just hold tight. Romans chapter number 12. Say amen if you're with me. Amen. Verse 9. Let love be genuine. The New American Standard Bible right there says, let love be without hypocrisy, which I think is very true, and I like that version, so I wanted to give you that one as well. Abhor what is evil. Hold fast to what is good. Love one another with brotherly affection. Outdo one another in showing honor. Do not be slothful in zeal. Be fervent in spirit. Serve the Lord. Rejoice in hope. Be patient in tribulation. Be constant in prayer, which I think a lot of us could do better in, is being constant in prayer. We think that if we go to church and we read our Bible and we do all that it's good, but I think that prayer is very, very, very important. And as you guys probably see here, I pray a lot. And so I'm going to continue to do that because it says to right there. So contribute to the needs of the saints and seek to show hospitality. Now, number 14 is where we start getting into territory that maybe we don't want to be a part of. Number 14 is where we start doing things that maybe is not that easy. Like the other ones, we can love, we can do all that stuff. But then we get into verse 14, and Paul just tries to flip it all over on us. So, bless those who persecute you. Bless them and do not curse them. Why would anyone want to do that? Rejoice with those who rejoice and weep with those who weep. Live in harmony with one another. Even the people that are different than you. Even the people that don't look like you or act like you. Do not be haughty, but associate with the lowly. Never be wise in your own sight. Repay no one evil for evil. Give thought to do what is honorable in the sight of all. If possible, so far as it depends on you, live peaceably with all. Beloved, never avenge yourselves, but leave it to the wrath of God, for it is written, vengeance is mine, I will repay, says the Lord. To the contrary, if your enemy is hungry, feed him. If he is thirsty, give him something to drink, for by doing so you will heap burning coals on his head. That doesn't sound very nice in our passage about doing nice things for people, but we'll get to that. Do not overcome evil. Do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good. So we're going to look at that, and I really want to focus primarily on one word in verse 18, peaceably. Live peaceably with all. And we're going to talk about that, and we're going to look at the subject of being peacemakers today. We're going to look at what it takes to be a peacemaker. Would you pray with me? God, we thank you that you brought us here today. We thank you that we're in your presence and that we can stand before you as your children. Now, God, I ask that you would be with us through the remainder of this service, that you would speak to each and every one of us out of your word, and that you would let us get closer and closer to you each day. In Jesus' name, amen. You can sit down. So I want to tell you something about being a peacemaker, because peacemakers are different than peacekeepers. I started to call this message the peacekeepers. And peacekeepers are very different people than peacemakers. See, peacekeepers are preventative. They try to stop stuff in a preventative way. But peacemakers are proactive. They look at the situation ahead of time and they say, how can I do something to bring peace into this situation? Peacekeepers, and I think about it with my children and even me and my brothers. I was the oldest of 3 boys, and I have 3 boys, and when I applied my life to them, this is what I thought. The oldest child is a peacekeeper. He will be okay with keeping whatever little piece is there until you provoke or push him, and then after that, it's all over. We ain't got peace no more. Now, the middle child, well, we're going to skip the middle child. We're going to go right to the youngest child, because the youngest child is like, what peace? I don't care about peace. I don't need no peace. I'm not about peace. I'm a mover. I'm a shaker. I'm a wild card. And these are all things that are true. It's true in Jaden, and it's true. But then there's the middle child, and the middle child is the peacemaker. He's willing to do whatever he can do to ensure peace. I remember growing up, and I would fight and fuss with my mother all the time, and she would be always on me, and I would be fighting back, and I wasn't having it because I was the peacekeeper. Like, I would be okay with peace until you brought the fight to me, and when you brought the fight to me, it was over. There wasn't no more peace. And then Tim would come in, and he would be like, let's just not do this. Let's just you go to your room, and Mom, you go over there. And I think about Elijah, and when it's all going down, Elijah, it wasn't too long ago, I think Isaiah was getting in trouble, and Isaiah doesn't know when to shut his mouth, And so when we bring the war to him, Isaiah is like, okay, let's do this. And Elijah kind of just looked over and goes, Isaiah, shut up! And at first I was like, Elijah, you know what? Do what you do. Because sometimes you need that peacemaker to come and bring peace in a stressful situation. And I think that's what God calls all of us to be. I think that God calls all of us to be peacemakers. I don't think he's content with us just being a peacekeeper. I don't think he's content with saying, all right, in your life you have 47% peace. And I'm okay with you having that 47% peace. That's where we're going to stay. You just live in that 47% peace. I think Jesus looks at us and says, in your life, you have 47% peace. But you could have so much more. You could have 100% peace. You could have everything that you ever wanted, needed, or asked for. All you have to do is become a peacemaker instead of a peacekeeper. They're very different things. In fact, in 1873, John Colt introduced a gun called the Peacekeeper. It was a big gun that shot a big bullet. And he said he just simply called it the Peacekeeper. And then in 1982, President Reagan named the Mobile MX missile the Peacekeeper. And then in Iron Man, Tony Stark did everything he could do to make weapons to keep peace. And so I thought about that, and I looked up stuff on Google, and I looked up Peacekeeper, and what you find when you Google Peacekeeper is pictures of guns, or pictures of wars, or pictures of soldiers, or pictures of people that really have nothing to do with peace, but that's what you get when you Google Peacekeepers, because keeping peace means you have to do something to make sure it stays there. Soldiers keep peace. When I was in Florida, I surveyed. And I worked with a guy who was in the military, in the army, and he was in Iraq and Afghanistan when it first started. And when it first started, they would go through and they would do their raids, and they would do all the stuff that they had to do. And then after that, he told me that their job got real easy after they did the initial raids. And after they did the initial raids, their job was very simple. It was just to be peacekeepers. They were there to make sure that these guys didn't fight back and that our guys didn't act foolish. And they were there just to be peacekeepers. A peacekeeper is content with having a form of peace. A peacemaker is never content with just having a little bit of peace. A peacemaker needs to make sure that in every situation they're in every situation with friends, with family, with their church, with their job, with their employers, whatever they're doing, that they have to have peace in that situation. A peacemaker is never content to just say, I'm okay with the way things are. We want to do it this way, and I'm okay with that. No, a peacemaker says, I want to make things better than they've ever been. I want to bring more peace into this thing than there has ever been. I want to do everything I can do to make sure we are at peace in our life. And the problem in today's society is being a peacemaker is seen as weakness. We can't be peacemakers because if we go to a situation and say, hey, here's the problem. What you're doing right now, I'm not okay with. And then what we do is we say, you really hurt me. You really made me mad. You really angered me. And I'm trying to make peace in this situation. And then what we get is negativity possibly given back to us. And someone says, I'm sorry if you got your feelings hurt, which just basically means I don't really care what you do. I'm sorry if you got your feelings hurt. I'm not sorry if I did it. I'm sorry that you got your feelings hurt. I'm sorry that you are a weak person. I'm sorry that you can't take what I'm saying to you. I'm sorry that you can't do what you're told to do. And we avoid the whole thing because it's just too difficult to be a peacemaker. It's too hard. It's not easy. Forgiveness is for our peace, not that person's peace. And I think what we end up when we get into forgiveness situations and we hold on to that and we say, I can't let this go, what we end up doing is not only eliminating peace in that situation, but we eliminate peace in our own heart, in our own life. And we say, I can no longer do what I need to do. I'm no longer going to be effective in the area of ministry that I'm in. I'm no longer going to be an effective employee at my job. I'm no longer going to be an effective husband to my wife or wife to my husband. I'm no longer going to be effective in these areas because I lost my peace. I lost the only thing that was giving me hope. I lost the only thing that was giving me drive. I lost my peace. So to be a peacemaker is very difficult today. We think that being a peacemaker is going to somebody and saying, listen, you messed up. You hurt me. I'm sorry. It's all good. I forgive you. And then that just gives that person a get out of jail free card. No consequences. But what we have to understand is that it's written right here, and we'll get to it a little bit later. God said, vengeance is mine. See, what we need to focus on is that if vengeance is God's, then peace is ours. If vengeance is God's, then forgiveness is ours. If judgment belongs to God, then bringing purpose and peace and forgiveness into a situation is our job. It's our call. It's our right to do those things. That's not on God. God said, I've made you to be the peacemakers. I've made you to be my representatives. See, the Bible calls us ambassadors for Christ. And an ambassador is somebody who is from another place but is representing that country or that people group in another area. So we have embassies in different countries around the world. And in those embassies, there's an ambassador. And when you're with that ambassador or you're on that embassy, you are on United States ground, even if you're in the middle of Kenya or China or wherever you are. You are an American citizen on American ground. Guantanamo Bay is American ground, even though it's in Cuba. And so if we are ambassadors for Jesus, that means we are a heavenly people. We are made in God's image. We are made to be something that so many people refuse to walk in. And we're not only made to be that, we're made to show that. We're made to show the people around us the kingdom that we represent. We're made to show the people around us the peace of God that surpasses all understanding. We're made to show the people around us every single thing that we step through, that when the storms come, we stand strong. And when the trials come, we stand strong. And when the issues happen, we stand strong. And it's not because we're tough. It's not because we think we got it all figured out. It's because we are ambassadors for Jesus. And an ambassador for Jesus should have no problem with being a peacemaker. That's what Jesus was. A peacemaker. That's what Jesus is today, a peacemaker. The Bible says that Jesus sits at the right hand of the Father and makes intercession for us. That means he's constantly up there trying to make peace between a fallen, sinful world and a righteous heavenly Father. And when God looks down and says, I'm tired of it, Jesus. I need this to be fixed. I know you did what you did, and I'm so thankful, but they still don't care. Not only do they not care, they're moving farther and farther away. They're taking us out of school, Jesus. They're taking us out of everything. We can't have our commandments in the courthouse. We can't do anything, Jesus. I need it done. And Jesus sits there and looks at God and says, but I'm taking care of it. I'm handling it. I'm handling it. And then we sit down here and we walk around and we live our life like it's just ours to live, ours to ruin, ours. But Jesus died to give us peace. He raised to give us peace. He didn't come down here for no reason. He did it because he's a peacemaker between fallen people and a heavenly God that cannot allow sin to be in his presence. Well, here's that word again. There's that word sin again that people don't like to use. There's that word, oh, this is one of those places. No, this isn't one of those places. This is a place where we get closer to Jesus. And when you get closer to Jesus, you start understanding that there's some stuff in your life that needs to fall off. And you can call it what you want. You can call it a mistake if you want to. You can call it an issue if you want to. You can call it a temptation, a trial, whatever you want to call it. But there's one word that covers everything. So let's just get it out there in the open. Sin. Sin is the bad word of the hour. And I'm sorry I got to say it. I'm sorry that I'm being one of those old guys that just comes up here and says the S word. But let me tell you something. The peacemaker creates peace between sin and his Father. Sin cannot enter my presence. Sin cannot enter my Father's kingdom. Sin cannot be here. So let me tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to go down there and I'm going to stretch my arms and I'm going to die. And I'm going to let Sean and Brent and Claire and Stephanie put all their sin on me. And then when they live as ambassadors and they live as peacemakers, God's not going to look down and see the fallen world all over them. He's going to look down and he's going to see what I did on that cross for them. And he's not going to see their failures. He's going to see me. And he's not going to see their temptations. He's going to see me. And he's not going to see their wrong turns. He's going to see Jesus. God doesn't do things on accident. Jesus did not accidentally come to this earth. He did not accidentally die. He did not accidentally raise. He did it for one reason and one reason only: to save lost people, to be a peacemaker, to bring us together with the God that we ignore. But all we do is keep ignoring. All we do is keep walking, because today it's really hard to be a peacemaker. Nobody is interested in peace. Peace doesn't sell movies. So Hollywood makes war movies and violent movies and vulgar movies. Peace doesn't get you any kind of discounts on anything. If you're having a time of peace, then you don't need to go and buy a gun, because there's peace. So we create tension in the country, and we create tension around the world, and we create conflicts, and we say white people hate black people, and black people hate Asian people, and Asian people hate everybody, and this is what we do. Because we can't have peace. Because peace is too hard in today's society. I'm sorry if that was a little harsh, but I look at the news sometimes. I watched the video on the CNN thing on Facebook that I saw yesterday, and it was a guy, a black guy in Louisiana, and he was riding around, and he said, okay, all you Black Lives Matter people that was down here in Baton Rouge for Alton Sterling, all of you Black Lives Matter people, now we need you. Now our houses are flooded. And he turned his camera to show the rest of the streets, and there was water everywhere. He said, this is when we need you. Where are you at now? I don't want to hear your business about Alton Sterling or Philando, whatever his name was, or I don't remember all the names. I don't want to hear all that. We need you now. Where are you at? Because they're not there to make peace. They're not there to help. They're not there to do what God has called them to do. Look at what the Bible says, what we read together. This is not Jonathan's words, and I'm sorry if it comes off a little harsh, but number 18, if possible, so far as it depends on you. So far as it depends on you, on me, live peaceably with all people. Live peaceably with everybody, everyone, the people that are like you, the people that are not. God, I'm doing what you told me to do, and they ain't liking it. That's what I'm just telling God right now, because I'm feeling like this is a little aggressive, and I don't mean it to be, but I feel like this is what God's put on me, and I feel like if I don't say what God's put on me, then I'm going to be doing the wrong thing, and I'm sorry that it's not a yay thing right now. We'll get to the yay in just a minute, but we got some issues to fix. And the problem is we got some issues to fix in the church, because the world will never want to be a part of something that is just like them. They're already a part of it. They don't need to go to church to continue to be a hypocrite. Oh, snap. They don't need to go to church to continue to gossip. They can gossip just fine at home. They don't need to go to church to continue to hate the people that they don't want to love. They can do that just fine at home. They don't need to go to church to see somebody yelling at everybody because they're stressed out. They can get that at work. They don't need to go to church to get a light show and a crazy kind of, all kinds of smoke machines and people jumping off stage dive. They can get that at a club. People come to church because they need Jesus. People come to church because they're looking for peace. Their life is a mess, and they need something to help them get through it. People don't come to church because of any other reason than they're desperate for a change in their life. That's why people go to church. That's why it's so important to be a peacemaker. We're more focused on getting even with people that we miss the opportunity to bless somebody. I just want to get even with them. Listen, Matthew chapter 5, Jesus didn't say, blessed are the peacekeepers. He said, blessed are the peacemakers, and they will be called the sons of God. A peacemaker is blessed because a peacemaker reflects the character of God. A peacemaker sees an issue in a situation and turns it around and says, this is what I created you to be. This is what you are. You're better than that. You're better than the things that you tell yourself. You're better than the lies that other people have told you. And sometimes we get so focused on pushing somebody else down so that we can rise up, that we don't pay attention, that we're not doing what God has asked us to do. He's asking us, please, be a peacemaker. James said it like this: a harvest of righteousness is sown in peace to those who make peace. Do you want to get a harvest in your life? Do you want to get a harvest in righteousness? I don't have water. There we go. Hit me with that. She got a baby-proof water. My eyes are watering. Thank you. No, I don't want it. I just wanted a sip of it. I wanted it to ease my palate. Let me get back to James, because James has something really important to say here. When we become peacemakers, we're sowing seeds that will become a harvest in our life. When we become a peacemaker, we're sowing seeds that will change the way everybody around us sees things. You can be I've walked into situations, I've walked into jobs, I've walked into different settings, I've walked into different places, and you can just tell when you get in there that there's something going on that's not right. And I've walked into these situations, and just by being me and just by smiling and making jokes and laughing and being goofy and doing what I do, I change the whole atmosphere of the whole room. We don't understand that we have the power to change. Life and death is in the power of the tongue. Not only is life and death in the power of the tongue, but peace and war is in the power of the tongue. You know, if you remember last week, I think it was last week, I don't remember when it was, I guess, but we talked about how things get started just by somebody saying one little thing, and we ended up having Brent had robbed a bank and was moved to Cuba or wherever he was. I hope you turned yourself in and got yourself right with Jesus, but you know, those are all things that start right here. Right here. And it's the same way with peace. You want peace, you speak peace. You want life, you speak life. You want finances, you speak finances. Now, don't get it twisted. I'm not telling you to go to the Cadillac dealership and go, this Escalade right here, that baby's mine. This is my Escalade. I know you got me this Escalade. I know it's going to show up at my house, Jesus. I know, Jesus. You're throwing oil all over the Escalade because you think that if you just speak it and pray over it, you're like, Jesus, this is my Escalade right here. That was a microphone. This is my Escalade right here. You're throwing your oil all over the place and you're doing all kinds of crazy. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying if you want to live a life that is blessed by God, then you speak a life that is blessed by God into your situation. If you want to be healed, then you get up in the morning and you don't go, oh my gosh, my back. You get up in the morning and you say, I might not feel healed right now, but I know it's healed. I know it's coming. It might not feel good right now, but I know it's going to change. I might not be at peace right now, but I know the peace is coming. These are the things that we have to do if we want to make serious change, not only in our life, not only in our families, but in our jobs, in our relationships, with the people we know. All these things are very important. And when we sow peace, we will reap a harvest of peace. Let me tell you something about a guy who knows something about sowing seeds of peace. In 1934, there was an 11-year-old boy in Nazi Germany named Heinz, like the ketchup. Heinz. And Heinz, some of the people in that time escaped Nazi Germany, some of them didn't. Some of them learned from it, some of them didn't. Heinz was one who learned from it. He seen the Nazis come in, and he seen them beat everybody around, and he was a Jewish guy, a German Jewish guy, so he was like caught in between the two. But he was Jewish, and he seen people come in, and he seen Hitler's younger soldiers come in through the city, and they would beat up on the little kids, and they would do all this stuff. So Heinz, when he seen them coming, he would cross the road, and he would walk over here, because all he wanted to do was avoid the issues. All he wanted to do was get away from the trials. All he wanted to do was get away from the things in his life that he didn't want to do. I know maybe you guys don't know what that's like, but I do. I've walked to the other side of the street to try to get away from the trials on that side. I've walked away to try to get away from some of that stuff, because I needed peace. And so Heinz would walk over to the other side of the of the road, and he would walk. And a lot of times it worked, but sometimes it didn't. And they would come up, and they would beat on him, and they would hit him, and they would do all this stuff to him. And finally, they got out of Germany, and they moved. They went to England, and then eventually they moved to America. And Heinz is somebody that you may know if you heard his name. And he's not the ketchup guy, so don't think I'm leading up to that, because I'm not. See, his name was Heinz when he was in Germany, but when he moved to America, he changed his name. They changed his name to Henry when he moved to America. His name was Henry Kissinger, and he was the Secretary of State under 2 different presidents, and it was him who got a ceasefire signed in the Vietnam War. It was him who won a Nobel Peace Prize because of his actions. What he did growing up was sow seeds of peace into his life, into his neighborhood, into his community. And when he grew up, he began to reap the harvest from the seeds he planted so many years ago. And what we need to understand is that if you sow something today, the harvest isn't necessarily coming tomorrow. It's not necessarily going to be here next Tuesday. But if you sow something today, the harvest is coming. The harvest is coming. We sow seeds of peace and seeds of godliness and seeds of a relationship with Christ into our children every day. But the harvest, while we see little things here and there, and we see things sprout up, and we see things like the kids talk about wanting to pray with people, or we're sick and the kids come over and say, Mom, Dad, can I pray with you? Or Elijah says, I want to grow up and be a missionary. And all these things that are going on in the kid's life, that's all great, but the full harvest hasn't come yet. And so you might be sowing, and you might see something sprouting up, and you might think, that's it. That's not necessarily it. That's just God showing you, I'm working on it. It's coming. It's coming. See, you plant things up here. I've realized this. The farmers go out and they plow their fields, and they plant their corn and their beans in the springtime. But they don't harvest it until the fall time. So you have to go through a few seasons in your life before you get your harvest. You don't just walk out one day and say, that's it. I've done what I needed to do. God, I'm ready for my harvest. God looks at you and says, you'll get your harvest when I'm ready to give it to you. Because there's still some things that need plowed in your life. There's still some things that you need to do in your life to get that field completely ready for the harvest. Because, see, what you're looking at is the harvest that you can see in your mind's eye. But what God looks at is the harvest that he can see in reality. You're asking God for something that you don't even know that you need, when God has already got something planned and coming for you, that all we have to do is continue to walk and continue to sow these seeds. And God says, keep sowing. Keep sowing. Oh, you're broke. That's all right. Keep sowing. Your relationships are dying. That's all right. Keep sowing. You just lost your job. That's all right. Keep sowing. You moved across the country. That's all right. Keep sowing. You're doing all these things for me. That's all right. Keep sowing. People aren't acknowledging you at work. That's okay. Keep sowing. I see everything. People aren't doing what you think they should do. That's all right. Keep sowing. You got to get up on your day off and you got to go into your job to the people that don't like you and talk about you when you're not around. That's all right. Keep sowing. If we keep sowing and we keep living the life of a peacemaker, then God will supply us a harvest that we ain't even ready for, that we can't even see, that we can't even think of, that we can't even understand. What God is bringing into our lives is something that nobody will ever notice. Listen, let me tell you this, and I say this a lot because it's very, very personal and real to me, and it excites me. This church maybe means nothing to anybody else, but it aside from my family and my relationship with God, this church is everything to me. This church is the harvest. It's not even the full harvest. This church is just stuff sprouting up out of the field that I'm seeing. Boom, God saying, look, Brent came, boom. And I go over to Brent as my first little crop, and I start to water Brent, and I start to say, Brent, man, we love you, we care. Danita's graduating, we'd love to be there. And then Sean comes, and I say, hey, Sean, man, I'm so glad you're here. Jerry and Claire, listen, I don't know what's going on. I mean, don't worry about the past. Remember, we're stepping into our now season. We're not worrying about then. And Susan, how you doing? It's great to see you. And I start to water, and Chastity waters, and then we grow, and we keep growing, and see that God has given us a little bit of a harvest. And listen, I went in to do ministry, and I started in ministry 10 years ago. And I've seen great things along the way. But now I'm starting to see the harvest that God has for me. And so when you come in and it's easy to look at the empty blue chairs, but it's more valuable to look at the people that are in the room. It's more valuable to say, I don't care if anybody ever sits here, ever, because I got two people sitting right here. And I need to put my everything into these two people. And these two people will do what they need to do, and they will go out and tell other people, listen, it might not be the biggest church, it might not be the coolest church, we don't got like a live hipster band playing, but we got somebody that will really focus on the two people. And that's what being a peacemaker is. And you do that at your job. And you do that with your family. And you say, I don't know all that God's going to do, but I know that God is going to do something great. And I know the harvest is coming because I've been sowing these seeds for so long. And I cannot sow into God's kingdom and not reap a harvest because God is the best soil you can get. And so when we struggle and we look around, don't take your eyes off the fact that God is the harvest is coming. The harvest is coming. The harvest is coming. We got to say that over our lives every day. When you get up in the morning and you're tired and your body hurts, you just got to say, my harvest is coming. When you look at your children that aren't paying attention and they're not following directions and you wonder if they're ever going to come back to Jesus, you just got to say, my harvest is coming. And when your marriage is falling apart and you don't know how it happened, but you've been together for 20 years and now all of a sudden it's ending and it's over, you have to look at yourself and you have to say, my harvest is coming. I don't know what God's doing, but I know He's doing it. And if I spin and I go through trials and I go through troubles, I have to always understand that the potter is controlling the spinning. You know in Jeremiah, when he told him to go look at the potter's house and he was making something, he put him on the wheel, and then the wheel just started spinning and spinning and spinning. Because sometimes God lets you spin. And sometimes the spinning is more than you can take. And sometimes you look up and you say, God, why are you doing this? I thought you were making peace in my life, and you're causing chaos. And then you look down and you look over the edge of the wheel and you look and you see that it's the potter's foot that's controlling it. And He knows exactly what He has to do to shape that one spot of your life. And then once that one spot is shaped, He slows it down. And He starts working on another spot. And then once that spot is good, He speeds it back up and says, now this is a tough area. We got to really do some spinning here. And we think it's chaos, but it's God giving us peace in our life. So let me flip to a couple things real quick. A peacemaker is defined as a person, group, or nation that tries to make peace, especially by reconciling parties that disagree or fight. That sounds like Jesus. Reconciling parties that disagree or fight. You make peace in that situation. You make peace in that situation. Listen, I know your side. I know your side. I'm not into that. You guys don't never have to talk again, but there has to be peace right here. Because if I can't forgive you, I can't expect Jesus to forgive me. If I can't have peace with you, I can't expect to have peace with God. This relationship is very important when it pertains to this relationship. It's so important that Jesus said that if you're at the altar and you are giving a gift to God, you got to leave your gift there and you got to go make it right with the person that you're having issues with. It doesn't mean you can't come back to that altar and give that gift. It doesn't mean you can't come back to that altar and pray yourself out of the issues. It doesn't mean that you can't come back to this altar and do exactly what God was doing in your life. God's not trying to take you away from the altar forever. The altar is His presence. God's saying, I want you in my presence more than you understand, but I want you in my presence properly. I want you in my presence where you can receive from me. And if you're holding on to stuff, no matter how much I try to pour, you'll never receive what I'm giving you. Because instead of looking at it and saying, God is so good to me, you look at it and you say, I can't believe them jokers. I can't believe. Did you hear what they did to me yesterday? Did you hear that? Let me tell you what they did to me yesterday. And while I'm sitting here telling you what they did to me yesterday, God's like, just shut up. I'm trying to give you something. I'm trying to make it better in your life. I'm trying to fix this. I'm trying to get you away. Just shut up. But we can't shut up because we're too busy running our mouth. I got a big mouth, so I run it all the time. I remember when I was first in church, I started praying, and I was learning how to pray. I didn't know prayer. I didn't know any of that stuff, and so I was learning how to pray. And I would start praying and praying, and we went. I went to a prayer thing with some guys from the church, and we went around and prayed, and it got to be my time, and I was like just going. I was like just going like the Energizer Bunny, just keep going and going and going and going and going and going and going. And eventually, when I finished, after the thing, they came out and they go, "Now, is that how you pray all the time?" And I was like, "Yeah, because I just want to let God know. I just want to let God know my issues. I want to let God know that I love Him. I want to let God know that He's awesome. I want to let God know that I need Him. I want to let God know all these things." And so I just talk. And he goes, "Okay, well, let me elevate your prayer life for you. Let me help you get to the next level, if you will, in your prayer life." And I said, "Okay, let's have it." And he said, "Sometimes the better times of prayer are when you don't say anything and you just sit there and let God talk to you." And I thought, well, that defeats the purpose, because then I'm not praying. I'm just sitting in a dark room. But I did it. I went back and I went home and I started praying, and I remember what he said, and I shut my mouth and God started speaking to me. And now when I pray and I give God all my issues. You pray, you give God all your issues. You pray, you tell God who He is in your life. You tell God, "God, you are my provider. You are my redeemer. You are my salvation. You are my hope. You are my everything." But then you got to be quiet and let God tell you, "And you are my child. And you are who I died for. And you are who I raised for. And you are who I will never forget. And you are who I will never leave. And you are who I will never forsake." And when we understand that God is walking with us every step of the way, we cannot help but be peacemakers. Because when you have that peace of God, all you can do is give that peace of God to somebody else. When you live in that peace of God, all you can do is give that peace of God to somebody else. Be a peacemaker in your community. Be a peacemaker at your job. Be a peacemaker at the bank. Be a peacemaker at the grocery store. Be a peacemaker at school. Be a peacemaker wherever you find yourself, because that is the heart of Jesus. Being a peacemaker is proactive. Always look for ways to bring peace into the situation. Ronald Reagan said, "Peace is not the absence of conflict. It's the ability to handle conflict in peaceful ways." Doesn't mean you're never going to. Being a peacemaker doesn't mean you'll never have issues. Being a peacemaker means you can handle those issues in the right way. It means that when somebody says something to you, you're not going to go, "I wish you'd say it again. Boy, I'll come out of this jacket." It doesn't mean that. Being a peacemaker doesn't mean that everything is just going to magically fix itself and you will have no more worries no more, because you are the peacemaker. And when you come into the scene, people are like, "The peacemaker is here." Usher him in. Usher her in. Bring her right to the front. Let her speak to us. Let us hear the peacemaker. That's not what it means. We'll have problems. But God said, take your problems and insert that peace into it. Take your issues and insert that peace. And then, so Gandhi took that and took it to the next level. See, he said, an eye for an eye only ends up leaving the whole world blind. So who are you hurting? When you don't forgive and you don't bring peace, you hurt yourself. And when you go and you seek revenge to get back at that person that did you wrong, you're just taking an eye for an eye, and now you're both walking around blind, and you can't see what God's doing because you're too busy focusing on the negative things that you're dealing with. An eye for an eye leaves the whole world blind. You cannot be a peacemaker if peace is not what's inside of you. I cannot put the ingredients into a big pot to make gumbo. Come on now. I can't put all the gumbo ingredients into a pot to make a fresh gumbo, right, Brent? You know how it's like. You know you're a cook. You know what it's like. And then expect to pull out of that pot a fresh Thanksgiving dinner. I mean, if I put the chicken in there and the carrots and the onions and the celery and the stock and the seasoning and the spices, and I put all that, the noodles, I put all that in there, and I let that stuff cook for like all day long, and I'm smelling, I can't go over to that pot and take that lid off and expect to see spaghetti. It's not what I put in that thing. And if you don't put in peace in your life, you can't expect to get out peace. If you don't put peace into your relationships, you can't expect to get peace out of your relationships. If you don't put peace into your marriage, you can't expect to get peace out of your marriage. If you can't put peace into your walk with God, you can't expect God to just sit there and go, let me pour my peace all over you. We have to start here. We have to start with us. We have to be the peacemakers. We have to be the ones that make the difference. We have to be the ones that initiate the change. So let me give you 3 things real quick that making peace does, or what it takes to make peace, all righty? Number 1, making peace takes separation. When I first came to Jesus, I had to leave every single person I was close to, all of them. The only person I had in my life that I was close to was her. Every one of my friends, every one of my associates, every one of anybody that I rolled with, I had to leave them all. Because in order to make peace in my life and peace with Jesus, I had to have separation in my life. You cannot stay hooked to what you're hooked to and expect a change in your life. Lot and Abram at the time, Abram at the time, they both had a lot of stuff. They had a lot of people, they had a lot of cattle, and they were looking for a new place to live. And Lot came up to Abram one day, and he said, this is enough. I can't do this no more. This is in Genesis 13, if you're wondering. And he said, I can't do this no more. And he goes, okay, well, this is what Abram done. See, Abraham was a peacemaker. Lot was a peacekeeper. He was okay until the issues came. Now the issue came, so Lot was going to fix it. So Abram said, listen, you do whatever you want. If you go left, I'll go right. If you go right, I'll go left. And so Abram settled in the land of Canaan because Lot chose for himself the city life. Lot chose to live in Sodom. So you got to be careful who you connect yourself to, because if you don't separate from Lot, he's going to take you to Sodom. If you don't separate from Lot, he's going to drag you places that you don't know that you're going to. See, Abraham settled in the promised land. If you don't get away from the Lots in your life and you don't get away from the people that are pulling you around and you can't make peace in a situation, they're going to drag you right to judgment. They're going to drag you. The Bible even says in Genesis 13 that Lot chose Sodom, built his houses all the way up to Sodom, and there were wicked people that lived in Sodom. And that's what Lot chose. Separation gets you away from the negativity. Separation gets you away from the things so that you can install peace into your life, into your relationships, and into every other thing. Separation is what it takes to make peace, to be a peacemaker. Be careful who you connect yourself to. Have you ever been hurt by a church? Maybe y'all haven't been hurt by a church. Have you ever been hurt by a Christian? Oh. Have you ever been hurt by a pastor? Have you ever been hurt by people that were supposed to help you, and instead of helping you, they turned your life into hell every day? Separation. I'm not going to stay connected to people that are not in the same boat that I'm in. I'm not going to stay connected to people that don't have the same vision that I have. Vision for peace. I'm too old for this mess. Me and Jerry were talking yesterday, and I told him, I'm getting too old for this nonsense. Keep it PG up in here. Not that it would have got R, but you know. It would have got PG-13 maybe. No, I'm just joking. I was going to say crap, okay? I was going to say crap. That's what I was going to say. I'm too old for this crap. Some people don't like that, but I'm too old for this. I don't have the time to be running around and fooling with everybody and listening to everybody. Like, I got my own issues. I don't need you telling me 45 different people's issues. I don't need it. I don't need you telling me all the things that you're telling me. I don't need you. I mean, I'm here for you. I will pray with you. I will help you. I will love you. I will lead you. I will guide you. I will walk with you. I will do whatever you need me to do. But I have my issues too, and I need peace. And I have to, at times, separate from the nonsense. I have to separate from the things that are not what they should be. I had to do it for myself, and I'm telling you, it's very important. When we again in ministry, we separated ourselves from everybody. We separated ourselves from our hometown. We separated ourselves from our family because we had to get peace in ministry. So we separated. And I don't think we would have had, it was hard, but I don't think we would have had the success in ministry that we've had and the ability to go and whenever God told us to go if we didn't go that first time. Separation gave us peace that when all hell was breaking loose in ministry, God was still there. And then we could see little parts of the harvest starting to come up. Number 2, making peace takes surrender. It takes surrender. It's hard to surrender to other people. It's hard to surrender and say, it's okay. What you did is okay. What you said about me is okay. I don't care. It's hard, but it's necessary. We have to surrender first our issues that we're holding towards another person, towards another church, towards another, towards wife or our ex-husband, or towards our kids that don't talk to us no more, or our brother or sister that we haven't talked to in 25 years. We gotta release that. We gotta surrender that. I spent so much of my life hating my father. But the time came when I had to surrender that. And when I surrendered that, God began to move. And I was able to see my father saved, not because I held on to hatred, not because I held on to resentment, not because I held on to issues, but I seen change and I seen salvation come to his life because I was willing to bring peace to that situation. Not peace for him, but peace for me. It's important. It takes separation. And the last thing, peace takes sacrifice. Making peace takes sacrifice. I'm going to read something to you real quick. We're going to finish up. We're going to finish up right here in just a second. Oh yeah, I can already taste the buffet. We're going to finish here in just a second. I'm going to read you something as soon as I can find it. I keep so much stuff in my Bible that when I try to turn pages, it just takes like huge chunks. All right, this is my favorite. When I was saved, this was one of the first Bible verses I ever heard, and it has stuck with me so much. It's my favorite Bible verse, and I'm going to read it to you guys if I can. You probably know it. I'm reading it out of the ESV. Might sound different, but let me hit you with this. But he was pierced for our transgressions. He was crushed for our iniquities. Upon him was the chastisement that brought us peace. And by his wounds, we are healed. By his wounds, we are healed. I got some things but I'm not even going to go there. He was crushed for our iniquities. The sacrifice that Jesus gave, we could never understand. If I stub my toe in the middle of the night, I want to throw a chair through the window. I'm like, oh, but Jesus sat there quietly while he was beat, while he was mocked, while he was ridiculed, and while he was treated badly by the same people he came to save. And it is because of that that we have peace. That we have peace with God, that we have peace with each other, that we can have different opinions on things and still be at peace. That I don't have to like loud music at my church. I like it quiet. But I can still fellowship and even attend church with a friend who goes to a church that has a rock band playing their worship music. It doesn't matter because I'm at peace. And the peace came from one thing. The peace came from sacrifice. Jesus took all our pain. He took all our shame. He took all our struggles. He took all our sickness. He took away our separation from God. While people were laughing at him, while people were mocking him, while people were playing games to see who got to keep his clothes as a keepsake. No, this is Jesus. I want his clothes because I want, when everybody forgets about Jesus and all the mockery stops, I want to be able to pull his clothes back out and say, remember this dude? Remember this weirdo that thought he was something? Not knowing that in just a couple days, everything would change. He hung there to give us peace. He got off of there to give us peace. He was laid in a grave to give us peace. And then Friday night turned into Saturday, and Saturday morning turned into Saturday night, and Saturday night turned into Sunday morning, and then the peace that God was ready to give us couldn't be contained anymore. And there was an earthquake, and things shook, and the stone rolled away, and at that moment, peace came out. Peace came out. Peace be with you, Jesus told his followers. Peace be with you. You believe in God, also believe in me. 3 days, one stone, hundreds of soldiers, hundreds of whips, hundreds of nails going into all different kinds of people. But 3 days later, peace came. And one guy seen it right away, because on the cross, he looked over at Jesus and said, Jesus, will you please remember me? And Jesus looked over. I'm sure it was hard to see because he was beat. I'm sure his eyes were swollen up. And he looked over, and I'm sure he was crying, so he had to look through tears. And he looked at the guy and he said, I've always remembered you. I remembered you before you were on this cross. I remembered you before you were on this hill. I remembered you before you committed your first crime. I've never forgot about you. And the two of them died together. But the good news is the two of them were raised together. Because when Jesus was raised, I was raised. And when Jesus was raised, you were raised. And when peace left that tomb, it didn't leave that tomb for any other reason than it knew that at the age of 20 years old, Jonathan was going to need to get hit in his heart with that peace. And the only way the enemy can stop the peace of God is with anxiety. That's why the Bible says, be anxious for nothing. See, it'd be easy to follow that if it stopped at be anxious. We could all follow that. But be anxious for nothing. Because peace died. And peace was resurrected so that we can be peacemakers. And when you're a peacemaker, you're an overcomer. Peacemakers are overcomers. Peacemakers are people that cannot be stopped by anything. So when we get up in the morning, it should be a declaration. Because of Jesus, I am a peacemaker. Because of Jesus, I am an overcomer. I can do all things through Jesus. There is nothing that can stop me. Hell cannot stop me. The enemy cannot stop me. Relationships cannot stop me. Anger cannot stop me. Hatred cannot stop me. I am a peacemaker, and I am an overcomer. Peace died so that we could live. And not just live, but live abundantly and live a life of peace that only He could give. Let's pray. God, I thank you for your word. And God, I know that sometimes your word is not easy. It's not easy for me to say. It's not easy for me to hear or receive. But God, I know that in everything that we do, you are our hope. You are our peace. You are everything that we need. And that we cannot take our next breath. We cannot have our next victory. We cannot do anything in our lives apart from your perfect peace. Now, God, I ask that you not only become the peacemaker in our hearts right now, that you help us to break chains, that you help us to let go of things, that you help us to get past things, that you help us, but that you help us to be peacemakers as well. That we are your representation, that we are your ambassadors, that we are everything that you've called us to be. God, make in us the heart of a peacemaker. Make in us the heart that you died to give us. Create in us a clean heart, God.